Hey there, frackers. Here we are again. This is Season 1, Episode 3, called Bastille Day. I am Dan, otherwise known as Twisted View, and again I have with me...
Rich.
And Pete.
I like the fact you put the "and" in your own name.
Yes.
And I'm Pete.
Yeah.
Again, we'll do the same as before I get into questions and stuff. Let's get thoughts and feelings. So, Rich, what do you think of this episode?
Episode 3, Bastille Day. So that's obviously a reference to the storming of the fort in the French Revolution.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
No, I know. Have you been reading my laptop, or did you actually know that?
No, I looked it up during the episode. So,
Well, there was me thinking you were going to drop.
Yeah, I thought you were
knowledge. And now I just feel like you disappointed.
Well, who's going to know that? Who's going to know that on the back of their mind? Who's going to know that?
What? You're stealing my thunder. That's my trivia.
Well, it's the name of the episode, so
it is
pretty synonymous with that. So, and obviously in the episode, it's the storming of the prisoners.
Yes,
taking over
exactly.
French Revolution with Tom Zarek.
Tom Zarek.
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 His name.
Yeah.
And that character I loved. As you alluded to, he's the original Apollo. Who's going to be our next breakout star for Battlestar Gallactica?
Apollo.
Of the prisoners. There's got to be one in there that's going to become a new cast member. And we have our breakout star.
I told you, it's Apollo.
It's not Apollo. From
Yes.
a series that I've never seen. It's good, really good. Added a third dynamic to the power struggle. Yeah, good. Really liked it.
Excellent. One thing I will do, we'll get the trivia out of the way first on this first one, because you've already done my first piece of trivia, which is...
Sorry about that.
I know, right? It was after Bastille Day. Second piece of trivia, as you mentioned, that Tom Zarek is played by Richard Hatch, who was the original Apollo in the 70s series. Right. So an added bit of trivia, which is something I thought was quite interesting, was when this iteration of Battlestar came out before this, Richard Hatch was famous for trying to kind of revitalise the whole thing. He was trying to get a new series made that didn't really come about. So when this came about, he was actually quite negative about it and was quite against it. So it was really interesting. And when they got him in, he went from being like their biggest critic to suddenly being like their most vocal supporter. And then he was just big in on it and making sure that everyone knew about this and it was a great thing, etc.
Brilliant.
It's like they got him involved in the show, which was definitely the right way to go. And as we'll see, he shows some real acting chops as well.
Oh, it's great. It's really good, really engaging. Yeah.
Excellent. Pete, thoughts on this episode on a rewatch?
Again, I think this was one of those episodes that, well, it is. It's one that I forgot about, and then as soon as I saw it, it was like, oh, yeah, this happens. And I think what I really loved again was the, as you said, it was the Tom Zarek character very much stealing the show throughout all of this. I like the whole concept of them saying, picking a side. What side are you on?
I like that too.
And it's all centred on Lee and his loyalties. But I think what I came out of this was like Lee. I mean, he was put in a position which was very difficult, and he just came out. He stayed true to himself. And what he believed in, and you could see how it rubbed off on other characters. And he just came out of that looking like he just walked through fire and didn't flinch. He was absolutely awesome. I thought that was just so well done. And I think he did pick a side. And I think there's definitely some other good things that will likely come up. But in this case, I think we saw a bit of a reversal from the decision making we talked about previously between Laura and Adama. This time I think we saw like a 180 switch where and I think there's a reason why, and we'll talk about that. But I think when he said talk and she said take him out, and she was quite clear about that. I was like, hold on a sec. Last time when it came to a ship of 1,500 civilians, or the bloody hell, I forgot the name of the ship they blew up, but
the Olympic carrier.
The Olympic carrier. She was, she got to a decision a lot faster this time because I think their emotional motivations were different. So
definitely. Okay, so the first question that I wrote down as a question to go round for each, the handling of the prisoners. So obviously the question came up, we need to get this water off this planet. We need a labour, we need a workforce. And so the question comes up, well, we've got a workforce of 1,000 odd, 1,500 odd people. So how to handle the prisoners is the question I wrote down. So I suppose my question to you guys, if it was you in their position, how would you have handled that? Would you have looked to the prisoners as your workforce, and what would you go about doing to have... I suppose what I'm saying is, do you agree with their decision, like in how they handled it, or would you have handled it differently?
It all depends on context. I mean, when they said they had prisoners, I was expecting they would be the worst of the worst. You wouldn't be able to use them. And then Apollo very quickly says these guys are on the way back for parole, and some of them potentially could be good. They could earn freedom points. So he's looking on the more positive side of things. So you sort of, as a viewer, get led to the idea that actually you could work with these guys. But it's that classic thing, you're trying to negotiate with like an animal, and you don't really know what the animal's going to do. And of course, in this case, it turns around and bites them. But what would I have done? I would have at least tried to bargain. I think Apollo, by opening their gates, the cage doors, obviously that's where it went wrong. But I think they were right to engage with them, since they spent the last 2 or 3 episodes trying to save every life, and that's kind of Rosalind's been like mandate. She's like, save everyone, we're going to need to make babies, etc. So I think they were right to do that. But as you alluded to me, in like, I don't know, the miniseries, they could have just left the ship behind. They would have had this problem.
Yeah, so as we said when we were watching it, that in the miniseries they made reference to that ship and what to do about it and whether or not to leave it behind.
Yeah.
So I really like the fact that they came back to it.
Yeah.
It didn't just get left as a comment and like, consequences.
Yeah.
It does carry on. Same question to you, Pete. Like, do you think they handled it well, badly? Would you have handled it differently?
Well, I think it was both leaders in this example. Both they almost just shirked and they pushed it onto Lee, and they kind of, and in this whole picking a side at the end of the last episode, about where she said she hired Lee on as her advisor and then said you have to tell your dad, in the same way that he was pushing Lee to take a side. I think both leaders actually shirked their responsibility to step up here, and they both had a point. They played through other characters, as leadership does. Leadership generally aren't the executors. They are the, they think and they order. They don't do the do. Oh yeah, but I think the other thing as well, like around Lee here in particular and his actions on that ship, was that he also has gone through a thing where he's had to take lives and deal with the consequence of those actions and the remorse that he felt of having done it and the questioning, everything like that. And in this case, he had to go against what he is being pressured to do by 2 opposing sides to then get an outcome where and that saved lives. But also Tom Zarek actually called it out when they were discussing. He says, you are Apollo, the god, but you need to find the way to make both come together, and he actually managed to do that. And that's why I'm so impressed by the way they wrote this for Lee, because this was all Lee, and it's kind of that incident on the ship allowed that you saw what he was capable of doing, but also the likes of Starbuck, who took the shot. It just so happened that didn't happen. But I think overall this was like a really good high intensity episode, which shows you what people were capable of doing in those kind of scenarios, and ultimately like what are their values, and what they're willing to either compromise on or really go to town and stick to their guns on. And I think that this is a Lee Adama episode. And
I think that was well put. I mean,
he carried the episode. Yeah.
I think that was well put. I mean, I would say that, in the previous podcast, I'd said, I do like Apollo. I think he's going to be important in the future. But on this, I wouldn't say up until this point we've had anything that you might class as a hero. But to me, he showed attributes that suggested he could be a hero. Like he was really, influential in getting these 2 sides to agree. And when he turned around and said, I'm going to give you your elections, Tom Zarek. I was like, wow. Like, to me, that was next level.
So, because we're on this, we'll keep on to this as our talking point for the moment. Because one of the things I wrote down, as an enjoyment piece, I like seeing Apollo and Apollo to get, it's a bit silly, but that natural back and forth. And I did like the fact that it was the original was playing I suppose Zarek is like an agent of chaos in a lot of ways. And that's what he was looking to create, which I find so ironic that in this time of war, when they're on the run from the Cylons and humanity's at stake, and all he wanted to do was continue his political agenda within this, and then the counterpoint or the counterbalance to it is that Lee is that force for justice. And irrelevant of what was going on, to him, the importance of maintaining law and the laws was more important. And I loved that he kind of went against, ironically, the thing that brought the two together, his father and Rosalind. So, which brings back to, do we agree with Lee? Do we think that, we know that Rosalind should be president? I don't know your opinions on that, but my opinion is she is the best person for the job. But do we agree with him that it's important to maintain the democratic process?
I'm 100% Team Lee.
Team Lee.
No question. I know everything he said made sense, and even things I wasn't even considering made even more sense. So that's what I'm saying. Like, he went next level to me. I mean, he resolved the situation, but then, put it in a new light so that you can actually have a democratic vote, and perhaps we can achieve a new leader, which we may need in the future anyway. But
her term's coming to an end in more ways than he thought.
Exactly. So I just, for me, everything he did was just a yes. I mean, it was great.
Yeah. Pete?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Did you agree with? Are you in agreement with Lee that they should maintain? Basically, it came across to me like continuing the democratic process, having the votes, was the most important thing to continue societally. Or do you agree more so with Adama and Rosalind, where they kind of, for want of a better word, became the villain of that, to say actually maintaining stability in terms of them being in charge was more important at this time?
Yeah, I do agree with his actions, and I think the thing that I wrote down here in a faith question mark, and the thing is though is that you think about all of the 50,000 or is it 46,000 we're at now?
I think we're around 48,000 at this point. Yeah.
Is that it's one thing to be in a position where you go, okay, we're trying to think about our absolute needs. You think about the triangle we talked about in the last podcast, and it's like everybody's belief. It's like, do you suspend your belief in the eyes of the greater good? And it's like, all of those people, they're still going to have thoughts and opinions and feelings on this. And everybody on that fleet pretty much heard what he was saying about giving people the choice, and that even though they're in the most dire situations, they're running out of water, all the things that, and they're alluding to that throughout the episode, like sharing water. Even Adama pouring the water back into his flask. And all those little things that show you that we're still there. Just because they're not talking about it, it's still happening. And everybody on the fleet is feeling that. So to strip away their rights, so giving them even the illusion of choice, is enough to kind of make them, because that's better than going, you don't have a choice. And those people, their faith in that particular system will be eroded, and it will just devolve into further chaos anyway. So in doing so, it's better that for now. Doesn't say it couldn't change in the future, but the fact is that you've got somebody out there as a champion saying, I'm challenging the leadership and the status quo always. And I think that's the bit of the Tom Zarek that he read about and admired, but at the same time he then was enough to challenge the man himself and say, I think you've got a death wish. He didn't just take everything Tom said for granted. He's challenged everybody who is coming at him, and he's fighting back. He's fighting and he's standing his own ground. And I think that's why Lee is so right in what he chose to do.
Yeah, interesting. Moving from Lee to Zarek now, because I agree 100% with you. I think that Lee is standing up for the right thing to do overall, which sides him with Zarek. So the question now becomes: is Zarek right? And I don't just mean like we may agree if we agree that he's in. That's why I want to put this. So him and Lee both agree that there should be democracy. However, they seem to be very different in terms of how they think they should get there. Yeah. So this brings me to another question around Zarek and his part in it. And do you think... So, Starbuck took the shot. The question becomes was Lee right to save Zarek? He may be right in that they need democracy, but was he right to save his life? And do we think there might be consequences to that? Based on him showing himself as an agent of chaos.
It's a tough one, because I felt like the pressure of the episode is that, you know, President Rosalind and Captain Dharma want him out of the way. They want nothing to do with it.
Oh, very clear.
They want to carry on. You know, they don't want any chaos, any disruption. There's enough problems going on with Cylons. They do not want this interruption. But, as you say, Lee's read the book. There's something about the man that he finds maybe he finds relatable in some sense, like the democracy part of it. But I think he saved Tom because he just doesn't. I don't think he wants to see any more death. I think he's got a problem with the fact that they're losing people, and he doesn't want to see any more death, and he wants to see if this man actually has a point. I actually think he wants to see if Tom has a point with his sort of vote for democracy.
Yeah,
I don't think he. I think criminal or otherwise, I think Apollo was gonna try and save him.
Okay, Pete.
Yeah, I do think he's right too, because you know, if they were disagreeing from like a leadership perspective, political whatever, they looked at this man who had previously 20 years ago had a political past and a history that goes with it, potentially a terrorist, and everything that happened. And it's like these things aren't black and white. That there are. It's like even Billy and Dee were having that argument, and that kind of gave you a bit more. It gave you more shade, because he was saying, you know, it's fine. So he reacted badly over the other colonies, basically not enslaving, but brutally. Right, they were being, you know, he had experienced.
Persecution.
Persecution, real world hardships across the colonies, and he fought back, and then he gets labelled a terrorist because because while things are easy and nice, we have a definition of what is considered peaceful, and there is always a downside to that. So he's fighting back for that. So you kind of go, well, and we know that that's the case. We see it in our own world, but we don't.
And Rosalind even makes a point, doesn't she, when talking about it? Like, he technically hadn't really done anything wrong as such, and the previous president was going to let him off the hook if he just basically apologised.
Yeah, that's right.
And he just refused to, which was interesting. Something else, I don't know if you guys noticed this in it, but I made note to, is he mentioned the Holocaust. Now, obviously, in World, they're talking about the Cylon attack Holocaust. But when you couple that with the fact that he had this book that was then banned, this brings me back in this very thought-provoking mentality from, again, World War II, Nazi Germany, with the Holocaust and the survivors and the burning of the books, and the education and reading wasn't allowed. And so even though I see Zarek as, like, as I mentioned before, he's this agent of chaos, he's looking for...
You're going to say religious figure?
Well, I was thinking more, it's interesting that he's trying to sow dissent in the ranks, and that I look at him negatively, but at the same time, he seems to be a representative in terms of that mentality for looking at that historical thing and what happened with the Jewish community. And he's sort of a representative there of, well, you know, all I was doing was speaking out against the regime. And that in of itself was considered to be wrongthink.
Yeah, speaking against the regime is exactly the right way to picture him, I think. And also, I do wonder if Apollo would have saved him if he hadn't read his book. If he hadn't read it, I wonder who would have been like, "Who are you?"
Well, you saw like with the which kind of moves us on a little bit as well. If you look at what happened with the other inmate that tried to attack Callie,
Mr. Bitey.
Mr. Bitey. Well, she's Mrs. Bitey.
Sorry, I got that wrong. Yeah, she's Mr. Bitey. Yeah,
and he's Mr. Shooty.
But just look how quickly Apollo just he's done. He put him down so fast.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I think there's a big difference there. There's one thing to challenge authority. There's one thing to use your newfound power as a means to persecute, and in this case, was attempting to rape a woman. You know, I think there's understanding and respecting power, but not
for the purpose of this. We'll try not to use the R word because YouTube algorithm doesn't like it.
Doesn't like what?
Grape.
Oh, wow.
The other thing you're forgetting.
I did not know that. Put a star over that, will you? Or a
star
beep.
that one.
Yeah, star that one out. I didn't realise that.
I'll let you know.
What was the name of that prisoner?
What, the one that tried to...
Lost his ear.
I don't even know if you got his name.
There was a name there. I can't remember it, but he did have a name.
Okay.
I'll look it up for you.
But,
yeah, that's unfortunate for him. I mean, if his book had come out just a few months before, he may not have been shot. But
well, no, because the thing is though, is that you hear what Lee said to him about how that book affected him. He said it made it made him think about things he hadn't considered before. So what I would almost go and say is, if Lee hadn't have read it, would he have been more compliant with what Adama and Rosalind were asking for?
And that's what I just said a moment ago. I was just saying that the book was kind of his lifesaver.
It almost saved his own.
Basically, you know, it's. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's obviously had an effect on Apollo, and Apollo being this new generation of like militaries, obviously they think differently. Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of, and I think we even see it now in our own world around. You know, it's like younger people being more aware emotionally, or they're kind of, because of the things they've got access to, they have. For me, I just seem to find, I look at younger people now and I'm like, wow, you're quite emotionally switched on. I'm not saying emotionally mature, but they're still quite switched on. And I think that, you know, we do tend to learn the lessons of the generations before us. And in some cases, you know, you look at, you know, parental figures and as almost sometimes go, well, that I want to emulate, that I don't. And I think Lee can look at his father and go, that I look at you, I see you, I don't necessarily want to be you. You know, and I think that's what he kind of, you know, rebellion or rebelliousness is a good word here as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I still can't remember the inmate's name, but I also think that he somewhat saved Callie in this episode. And when I say that, I mean career-wise, because she was actually meant to be originally just a kind of sort of one-and-done type character, like a couple of episodes or so, and given her this element that's kind of opened her up, gave her a personality, gave her something
to chew on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You were so happy with that, weren't you?
Yeah, mate, good job.
Look, he's so happy with himself right now.
Yeah,
ear.
Something else I made a note of in terms of like the thing with Apollo, and I even noted down, it's like, he's the son of Adama, son of Zeus, Apollo and Zeus, and funnily enough, Zarek, basically just after I was like, yeah, that's so smart, Zarek pretty much said it himself. Zeus is calling.
Yeah, I mean, if you're under any illusion as to how they were, you know, picturing
the power play there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's literally spelled out for you, wasn't it?
Moving on from that stuff, unless you guys have anything else on that, I wanted to talk about Starbuck and Ty.
I did not get the ending there. I did not get why she walked in and wanted to toast with him. And I mean, I get the hostility, but I don't understand why she wanted to make up with him, because all she did was go on a mission. And I mean, he said that, yeah, she's a good shot, and I mean, to some extent allowed her to go on the mission. But I mean, she would have gone on the mission anyway. I mean, I don't think that's...
No, I think that you just nailed it right there. Is that One of her best friends was on the other ship being held captive. She's got an emotional drive to go and help him, and and then you got old man Adama basically saying no, and then he's giving her props, which he never really did before. And
I get that,
and also the last time he tried to extend an olive branch, she slapped it back to him and just called him out. Then they've had that disagreement. Then he's done that, and she's probably looking at it going, I might think you're a bit of a drunk, but you still look at me like professionally, and you respect me enough to say it. And then and to then have that happen again, I thought that was absolutely
okay. Perfect. No, fair enough. That's put it in a different light for me, because to me, I thought it would take more than that.
I'd say working my way back, because we've gone technically by the end, and so working my way back from that end, I see it as more than just what's going on in this episode. I see that olive branch, that her coming forward and toasting with him, is more about the development of their overall relationship from the miniseries through the first couple of episodes to now.
Right.
And it is sort of that extension of, we've seen literally from, if we go back to their first introduction together playing cards and in a punch up, to this point, there's like there's a respect, but it's begrudging respect between the two. And as he rightly pointed out, they both have flaws. Their flaws are just different. His is personal, hers are professional.
He made that very clear, yeah.
Because if we look at Ty, again, we're seeing this other side of him again in this episode, sort of going back to the start of the episode, where I'd made a note here saying that Ty seems to dislike the fleet and people within the fleet. So where we saw him in the start of the episode, where he was clearly drunk and slightly jovial in that, I think you saw a little bit of his proper personal opinions coming out when he was talking to the chief and the other people on the deck, which mimics what he says at the end. My issues are personal.
Yeah.
Just another note. I really, really liked the Top Gun motif that she went with.
Flat top.
Yeah, with laptop. And she's like wearing the aviators.
Oh, doing the speech, doing the
That was like back to back just put downs, wasn't it? It was just so much burning going on. But I think one other thing that and I know it's like a really small thing, but when she was loading onto the ship, Saul turned round to her and said, "Good hunting."
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
that's a throw. It's not a throwback, but it could have been. Is that when Starbuck called out Lee, and she said at the end of your speech or whatever, you're supposed to say "good hunting," not "be safe out there."
Yeah.
And since then, you haven't heard anyone say "good hunting." He said it to her, so that's a clear intent of like, go out there, kick some ass. And Ty said that to her. So even though he's not a part of the air group, or we don't know about his history, if he's a pilot or what, but it was just that small little thing. These little,
it's that military respect.
And he showed that to her on several occasions. So I think it is there. And
I think one thing with Ty this episode, and I don't know if each of you agrees, I felt that he was being very hypocritical a lot of the time. But at the same time, whilst he's being a hypocrite, i.e. he was turning up to work drunk still, he was doing things that he absolutely should be doing and putting things to right. And the example one I'm going here outside of Starbuck, because obviously we know that he's always trying to do that, is his conversation with Boomer. So he's like, when he talks about her and Chief, he was like, right, we're at war now.
Finally caught them. It's like I said in the last episode, I said, this honeymoon period is like, when you asked me about what Tyrrell should be doing, and I was saying, this, you should be thinking sensibly, like this honeymoon period is over. You can't be, you're at war now, and you can't be thinking with your heart. And of course, he walks straight in and goes, "You and you, it's over. Do not do this anymore."
Yeah,
and it was good to get that the answer to the fact that yes, all the ship knows, not just a few people start dancing around you. It's everyone.
Yeah, so
that makes me think about the last podcast we did. Of the re-record, because on the original one I actually called out and said they're not blatant about what they are blatant about what they're doing. Everybody knows, and it's just kind of like that whole like, we're just going to go and talk over here, and they have to knob in the fucking small arms locker, and it's
the big arms locker maybe. I don't want.
But I like the fact that he calls it out, because I think where in the last episode where Chief was calling out lax procedures, and you can see where they're starting to like really tighten down now. And ever since they found out about the variation of the Cylon models, they're starting to just kind of squeeze people around to start forcing, and because they know the behaviours of what to expect mostly. And I think they're just now like, just going to start squeezing here, tighten it up, stop letting this kind of stuff happen.
Well, he's doing. He's the XO, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
tightening the reins.
Yeah, I like Saul. I think he's an awesome character because you know that he's heavily flawed, but he can be an absolute ball buster when he has to. And so Starbuck, and that's why they have such like great friction. Yeah, amazing friction.
The last part for me, or the last thing that sort of came to my mind, was also we have the mirroring from Adama when he lied about Earth. He lied about Earth because he wanted to maintain hope. And again, that's sort of mirrored here with Rosalind at the end of the episode where she tells Lee the truth about her cancer, but equally says, this has to stay low because I need to keep people's hope up. And if they knew about that, that might degrade hope. So I thought that was also quite interesting how that seems to be a recurring theme.
That was amazingly acted, that scene between Lee and Rosalind. That was like you could feel the weight of what she was about to tell him, and him receiving it. You could tell it was a big milestone for them, and it was like
it's like he knew what he had to do, but I think there'll be a guilt element from Lee. I wouldn't be at all surprised if you start seeing that just subtly.
Favouritism, like leaning towards her.
Possibly, or maybe it's sort of like that, you've got cancer, let me help you, Whereas she's proven to be, an absolute battle axe so far. So it would just be interesting to see now that he knows how will the attitudes of him to be towards her from now on.
Excellent. So that's all the things I actually had noted. So is there anything else from either of you, starting with you, Rich, then you, Pete, that you noticed or you wanted to discuss before we move on?
No, not particularly. I mean, it's great. We took it off the Cylons for a bit. We made it a bit more in-house. So it's good to see there's going to be more stories than just running away from the Cylons. More interesting characters popping up. Yeah, just really good. I don't know why I started getting really weird vibes of like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but it just the fact that there's this bigger community that you don't really realise is there.
I never pegged you for a Star Trek fan.
I'm absolutely not, and I do not want to be branded as one. I'm just saying that that's that.
Vote down below if you want to see Rich watch all of Star Trek, starting with the original
Star
series.
Wars through and through.
Recognizes the senator from the sovereign system of
Which path will you choose?
I must be frank, Your Majesty. There is little here with the taxation of trade routes. There is no civility, only politics.
Are you afraid or aren't you?
The chair does not recognize the senator from...
I will not allow you to lecture me. Then why do you stop me?
Let's make it happen, YouTube.
Let's not.
I want to see him watch Next Generation.
Absolutely
Make it
not.
So.
But yeah, that was it really.
Okay, I know, just swerving here. I know you don't like Star Trek, but would you at least watch Picard because it is actually amazing, and it's only 3 seasons and it's brilliant. Please.
Maybe you got the chef's kiss and everything.
Yeah, exactly. This is me begging. Look, I promise I will not bring up Logan again if you watch Picard.
We went from suggesting to begging very quickly.
Well, we've been begging him to watch Logan for about 3 years now.
More than that.
5 years? 8 years. When did Logan come out? Cool. Any final thoughts from you, Pete?
Yeah, I think just the I think just a bit as well was around I said at the beginning, Adama said talk, Laura said kill. When it came to making a decision about Tom specifically, but also
interesting that it's the political counterpart, and suddenly the military were more up for debate, whereas politically she was like, now let's
and I think this goes back to my last comments about where Adama sees the wood for the trees and Laura walks amongst them, and he's thinking, get them on side, get the 1,000 workers, get the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely macro level. And then you've got Laura going, if we get rid of this one guy before he becomes a problem, then we can keep the hope, we can keep the peace. And I think that it's just sort of yeah, exactly. Just the fact that they seem to tweak on their values when it's almost like a reversal of the situation, you know. And I think also the other thing as well is that you say that Adama would have made that decision because he wants to get hold of the workers. It's also the fact that his son is being held hostage, and I think that's also a big kind of motivator for him. So it's like where he would make the hard choice. I think Adama would neg on making the hard choice if it was somebody that he loved, if it was Lee, for example. And I think it's good to see that there is some compromise in those characters under certain duresses. So,
definitely.
Okay, excellent. So as we've done with every episode, although I'm not sure if the needle's going to move much at all this episode, but let's start with the Death Note. Has there been anything, or is there anything within this episode that makes you think that there's somebody that might be sliding onto the Death Note?
I mean, our new character Tom, he's definitely on that Death Note.
You think Zarek's now on the Death Note?
He's definitely, no question. Like, I think
you think he'll get his wish?
His entire story arc is about becoming
a martyr.
A martyr, yeah. I mean, it's definitely written in the stars. So that's that. No other change for any other character for me.
Excellent. So Zarek's joined Billy on the Death Note.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. And again, I don't know if I'll see much change in this, but if we manoeuvre over to the Gaius Baltar Ratometer, I don't think Gaius was really too integral to this episode, and I'm not sure if that would change things at all. Can't remember. We didn't really talk much about Gaius, did we?
I think he had the one scene where he basically asked for a nuclear bomb. I mean,
yes, the nuke. Oh my god! I can't believe I forgot the nuke.
Yeah, I mean, can we address the nuclear bomb in the room here?
I'm like going, Ratometer, are you staying around at 6 or 7? Meanwhile, Gus is like, can I get a nuke?
The funny thing you said, I don't think he's going to be much of a factor. It does one scene. This one scene is literally about requesting nuclear bomb. Pretty serious. Yeah. I think.
Can't believe I forgot.
It's just like. But as I said, we're watching it. I don't know now whether 6 is in his head or real.
Yeah,
because I really don't. It's almost like he's coming. He's figuring this stuff out for himself, but 6 is guiding him in some way, and I don't know whether that's his own conscience trying to guide him there, or if he's actually got
something
an
implant. A little bit more.
Like I really don't know, but and the way he acted it, you watched him actually say, "I need this thing," and she was like barking at him, and he went, "I need this bomb. I need this nuclear bomb," and you're like, "Really?"
I love the way as well. He does himself as a guy says, "Yes, I need a nuke. I need a nuke."
And he didn't even understand why he needed it. He didn't even.
But he does get there, doesn't he? I like the fact that she was like, "Figure out the rest on your own," and then you watch him figure out, why do I need an?
Yeah.
Because of the radiation. Yeah. Because in the miniseries that had an effect on them when they're in that place.
Yes.
But I think the other thing as well was the fact that he admitted he was like when he was like, "Do you have a Cylon detector?" No. He sat there and told Adama, "No, I do not," which indicated that he may have lied previously. Adama doesn't even react on that point. And then he's just like, "Well, you're the only guy I've got, so I've got to go with you." So it's sort of like, where's Adama coming from on that? Because as a man of the military, he would have, if he was being more switched on, he would have called him up right there and then and gone, "What are you doing this for? Why did you lie to us? And did we potentially stick an innocent man out to die?" Yeah. Or he's just so exasperated by everything that's been going on, and he's just like, "You know what? I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I'm going to the hard place."
Going to deal with that. So, in terms of Ratometer, overall, despite the fact that he wants a nuke, do we think that, or has that changed our opinion on where we feel that he is? Stay where he is. Excellent. I'm going to ask, because I know it's the Gaius Ratometer, and he's staying where he is, but would you add anyone else to that meter based on anything that we've seen?
Billy.
Because you'd add Billy to it.
Oh, are you saying that him getting D put onto that shuttle wasn't motivated? She even called him out. How did I end up here?
He's just trying to give her the D. He's not trying to. He's just trying to.
Do you know who I'd add to it? It would be actually Apollo. Not because
shut your mouth.
if you remember, as per the actual rating system, if 10 is rat, 1 is saint. And would I put him more on the saintly end of things based on the way in which he's been dealing with justice and the
but
law
I think he's a force for good anyway. I don't think you need to question that.
Oh, I'm not questioning that necessarily. I think it's a range meter that I could use for any given character, any person.
But I just think,
he sits very.
A lot of the characters, to me, and obviously I haven't watched this show before, are pretty vanilla in the sense that you kind of know what direction they're on, what side they're on. Obviously, I understand that, yes, the main point of this show is we've got Cylons buried in there, but with Gaius, legitimately, you do not know from scene to scene which way he's going to go. And that's why the router meter is so fun with him.
I think it's good to use the moral standpoint of other characters to check where the rat is, and I think
okay, that's a good way of putting it.
It's kind of, you look at what Lee does in a given situation. He's thinking about other people. He's thinking about how he can, in some case, save a whole ship of criminals from being blown up because they won't comply, and getting them to blend in. Or you've got Gaius, who is so self-centered, self-preserving. He does everything because of what affects him, with the slight smidge of, guilt thrown in. And we have seen it, but
it exists.
I'm right, is that
he needs ratification. That's what he needs. And and that's the new term I'm coining.
Wow. That's a totally good pun. And well done. I'm not going to smile. I'm not going to clap. You're getting a nod. Well done.
To me.
To you and your punchlines, which, for these episodes have been rather enjoyable.
Okay. And finally, based on anything that's happened in this episode, I know the Cylons have been very low key. They've taken a step back. Any movement on any potential Cylons? Yeah, I mean, I'd personally throw in there maybe even Gaius asking for his nuke.
Well, yeah, but we're still debating this point, because Gaius is one of these where we don't know where he stands, because he's either hallucinating or he's being programmed, or he's being influenced by his.
And is that because he's a Cylon?
Huh?
And is that because he's a Cylon?
Well, that's the thing.
That's the question.
He's hallucinating out of human guilt, or he's hallucinating out of Cylon influence because he is one.
Ooh. I mean, good point. I'm not going to name drop any more characters, because I don't feel I've got enough evidence yet to suggest them.
That's
so
good.
We're going to stick.
That's good.
So Cylon counter sticks where it is, and again, it's not going to necessarily go up and down every episode. There's a lot of episodes.
No, of course not. No, we're early days.
Excellent. Well, that's everything we have. So, are there any final thoughts from either of you?
No, bring on the next episode.
Yep.
Okay, so say we all.
So say we all.